Well, hi, my name is Stephanie Crawford. I am currently living here in Westchester, Ohio. Been here probably since about 2007. My son and I relocated with the company that I work for shortly after he was born. And we live on the west side. We started out on the Lakota East school system and then transitioned over, due to trying to get ready for my mom, who's getting a little bit older and wanting to have a place where she has access to everything she needs on one floor. So Lakota all the way, regardless of east side or west side. I actually am familiar with the area. I went to school at Xavier, did my undergrad work there, and then immediately upon graduation got commissioned as a second lieutenant and spent about 10 years on active duty, traipsing all around the world. Like literally, I moved 8 times in 10 years. There's a lot of pros and cons with that, as you can imagine. I think probably for me, one of the biggest things was how do you get acclimated quickly, right? Learn your surroundings, build relationships, really build community. And it's hard when you go someplace and you're there for a year, to 18 months or so. But it taught me a lot about my resiliency and about the things that are important. So when I made the transition from active duty and started on my kind of civilian career, I kind of knew where I wanted to be. It's funny because they say how you grow up and you say, I'm leaving home and I'm never coming back to this place, right? Small town in the Midwest. It's amazing though how life changes you over a period of time and how family becomes so much more important. And that's what brought me back to the area, to be quite honest with you. So we've been here now for the better part of about 15 years. My son is now 15. As I shared, we moved here when he was just a tyke, had just been born. And, I think for me, this area has been a blessing in many respects, with respect to the school systems, the neighborhoods we've lived in, the community, and the churches. When you're in the military, you search different places, and I did the same here as well. And for about 5 years, kind of balanced between 2 churches. And I ended up landing here at Center Pointe primarily because of, frankly, Pastor Spradling. And a message that he delivered several years ago that prompted me to get baptized. And it's amazing because growing up, I didn't grow up in the church, but I did grow up in faith. My family talked a lot about God, a lot about faith. And through that, some of the lessons that you learn, through just that interaction, really were presented to me. You hear sayings like, it's not your will, it's God's will. Or it's not in your time, it's in God's time. And you're like, what does that really mean? A while ago, I had the opportunity to really understand what that meant. And I think it was a profound impact for me. The first was I had been very successful in just about everything, growing up in terms of athletics, academics, career. I thought things in life were going to happen for me just like, fairy tale. When I transitioned out of the military and, was at the point in time where I was settling down and was looking forward to start a family, what I didn't count on was the fact that it wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. And that was really hard. I remember having a discussion with my mom about it, and she told me that I needed to be still. And I remember thinking to myself, what does that mean? And she said, honey, this is not about you or about you willing it. It is about what He has in store for you. And I don't know what the answer is. All I can tell you is you need to be still. Now, if anybody knows me, you know that I'm never still. But I reached a point, honestly, where I heard her, but I wasn't really hearing her. And I'll never forget getting a call that mobilized my unit back to active duty right after 911. And I remember thinking to myself, great, so this really is not going to happen. I'm getting called back up to active duty. I was just really frustrated. I was upset. I was disappointed. I love my country. I served my country for 23 years, all in all, said and done. It wasn't about that. It was just about where I thought I was supposed to be. Clearly, at that particular time, that's not where I was supposed to be. Then you couple that with a lot of challenges associated with infertility. So I had, everything stacked up against me. So much so that, I got one doctor's feedback that said, you should just go ahead and have the hysterectomy. The fibroids are so bad that there's nothing that you're going to be able to do. And so I reached a point where I honestly was broken. And the other saying of let go, let God really started to become clear. I'll be honest, I did let go. Before I let God, though, I was angry. I was hurt. I kept asking why. So I go to active duty and, I'm focused on what I need to do, right? I mean, you're in harm's way. You've got your soldiers in harm's way. You have to focus on everything but you. It was probably the blessing that I needed because my focus was taking care of my troops, taking care of their families, trying to, as much as possible, let my family and, my network back here know that I was okay. And that was where I found stillness. 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. In that little bit of time that you had between sleeping and working, I found being still. So finished the assignment after a year, came back to my job, and, I thought to myself, God, maybe this isn't meant for me. I'm 36 going on 37. And at this particular point, okay, but I've got so much love to give and I've got resources to give. So just show me where to share that. So I am pleased to say, and it is just unbelievable, but within 6 months, I remember feeling really ill. I'd gone to dinner and I just wasn't feeling well. And my mom was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." She was like, "You better go get checked out, And I'm thinking, oh gosh. And you're thinking all kinds of things. Maybe I picked something up, while I was deployed. You just didn't know. And so sure enough, I went to get checked out and the doctor was like, "Is it possible you could be pregnant?" I was like, "There is absolutely no way I can be pregnant." And she said, "We're going to just do this test anyway, and we'll see." And lo and behold, it came back that I was expecting. And so I had a very healthy 6.5 pound boy who is now 15 and the light of my life. But that prompted me to do a lot of other things relative to children because I knew that he was pointing me in that direction in some way and that he was going to allow me to give those things to children. So that's what I did. The other story that I think profoundly had an impact on me from a faith perspective actually came 2 years later. So it was the middle of the night and there's this banging at the door, literally about 12 o'clock at night, there's this banging at the door. And, I'm a single mom, not sure what's going on. I've got a 2-year-old in the house, I go downstairs, I get to the door, I look out, and I see my family. I see my mom. I see my sister. So I opened the door, and I knew instantly when they came in that something was wrong. And then that's when they proceeded to tell me that my brother had passed away that night. He was 37, and he had suffered a massive heart attack. Nothing could have prepared me for that. He wasn't sick. He had showed no symptoms. And, to this day, still, it comes back to me in a rush and as painful as it did at that time. By the same token, the notion of time healing is very true. The saying that time heals and that, he's gone home. Over the years, I started to understand what that really meant. And, it was really by faith. It was by my mom's faith, I'll be honest with you, in this particular instance, that I was able to work through this. When a parent loses a child, watching her go through that had to be one of the hardest things. But she never lost her focus on the fact that he was with his maker in heaven. He was in a better place. And as much as I knew when they buried him, she wanted to get in that coffin with him. I knew she did. But she also had 3 other children that she needed to live for. And she had him for the 37 years that God gifted him to her. My son Devin is a spitting image of my brother. Some days, it drives me insane, and other days it makes me melancholy just thinking about him. And I know how much he would want to be here with him. But he lived still through us, and even though Devin was only 2 when he passed, he knows everything about his Uncle Bubba. But it was those 2 things that really, sort of propelled me into my faith and into God's arms, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know, like many of us, what the future holds. I'm sure there's something else in my life that I will endure that will be equally, if not more challenging. But I will tell you now, through those experiences, no matter what that experience is, I do know that the one thing that will see me through it is holding on to him. And so, as I shared in the military, when you're someplace for, just a short duration, you find yourself having the opportunity to try to go to, different churches to see, what they're about, to make new connections, to listen to the word. And so that was kind of my journey for, years. When I got here and knew that this was going to be home, I knew that I needed to find a place that not only was kind of my spiritual connection, but also hopefully a place that I could, have my son be part of. So it was important to me to find a place that really made you feel welcome, that really had outreach in the community, not just our community, but in general for the love of mankind. And that really helped youth find their way, a lot sooner than I found mine. But I guess it doesn't matter as long as you get there. That's the most important thing. But I just think when they have an environment that really affords them the opportunity to, from the very beginning, really understand and ask questions and connect, that's really important. So I went on my journey. And really, for years, narrowed it down between 2 locations. I live not too far from here, so I saw the church. I read a little bit online about it, and decided I'd come and check it out. I'd been going to Crossroads for quite a period of time, and really enjoyed that. It was like a sister church to the one that I had been in before in Atlanta, and then subsequently in Dayton. So I knew what that was about. So a lot of similarities. And then some differences as well. And I found myself going between the 2, equally, looking forward to what, each Sunday was going to bring, or Saturday night. That was one of the reasons I did like Crossroads, like Saturday night. But they both had great coffee. So, I did that for quite a period of time. And like I said, for me, finding a church home is all about where I feel like I am most connected. And coming in here and listening to the message every Sunday, I found myself at the end of the hour sitting there like, time is up. I just literally sat down. I would just be so engulfed in the music and the word that it was the fastest hour, ever. And I had never really experienced that. That was number 1. And then number 2, how you go somewhere and you feel like that person is talking to you directly about what's going on in your life. And it seemed like more often than not, whatever he was, talking to us about, had some relevance in what happened to me that week, or what I was thinking about, or something. And I just thought it was too uncanny to not be, bait, and that this is where I needed to be. And so, it started out small, relative to coming on a regular basis, tithing. That was important to me. I said, well, if this is where I'm going to commit, spiritually, then this is where I'm going to commit financially. And not too long after that is when the unfinished journey started. Now I just done the Crossroads I'm in, so I'm already into this mode. But the unfinished journey really appealed to me. And you know what got to me was when we started out with that, and we talked about your one. That got me like at hello, right? Because I have many ones. My big one is my son. And it was through that, and going through the process of the one and putting their names, that had an unbelievable effect on me. And that's when I said, yep, this is it. So committing, not just financially, but being comfortable with being uncomfortable with what I committed. I had never done that before either. I would give, but not like to the extent that I wanted to for this, because of what it means, because it affords the opportunity to expand and be able to have others come into this wonderful place, and to either start their journey or to continue their journey. And so that was huge for me. It's what this church did for me, and therefore I was hoping that I could support doing that elsewhere. The other thing that got to me as well was, so I talked a little bit about children and their importance to me. And shortly after I started to learn that maybe I was not going to be able to have my own child was when I started to engage in a lot of activities, some of which were actually funding schools and helping children in areas or countries that are less fortunate than us. And I'm pleased to say that for, Devin's 15, so 18 years, I had a young man who now is 24, who is in the process of going to college in Kenya. And he wants to be a pilot. And it's ironic because I work in sort of the aviation industry. And he was my first. I've had maybe 6 or 7 children that I've supported in that way. But I was here when international needs came. And I went over and talked to one of the hosts, and they shared with me this photo of a 7-year-old by the name of God's Way. And just to look in her eyes, I knew that I needed to be there for this child. So the fact that, Centerpointe does these types of things, both in your backyard and then, abroad, and especially having been in the military where I've seen, the blessings that we have here in the U.S. I don't care where you are in the world. There is really no way of life that equals this one. Maybe from a materialistic standpoint. The reality of it is, I will say there's lots of places I've been where they knew what was important, no matter how little they had. And that's where I wanted to try to make the connection, right? I've got the resources. You have your heart, you have your determination, you have your drive. You just need somebody to help you. I can help. And so that was, sort of kind of how I went through that process of committing here and doing unfinished, and and looking forward to us getting past the COVID, so that, now that I am officially a member, I signed the covenant. So I'm all in now, to be able to, because I know it's important to be part of the smaller communities in terms of engaging in outreach. Never before, I'll admit I would come to church, but I really wasn't engaged in the church. But now I want to be. I want to be able to use my skills and my knowledge to help where I can, in any way that I can. And so I'm looking forward to doing that as well. I think what unfinished means for me is the possibilities of what lies ahead. The most recent, pandemic that is, having an impact on us unlike anything before, coupled with a time in our society where social unrest is at a heightened state. And as an African American female with an African American son who I'm trying to raise, I need to be part of something that's bigger than the things that we're enduring right now, something that's going to bring us together. And I think that's part of what Unfinished is about, right? Is to be that place, to be that body, for the community to come together and to help build one another up, and to love. It's fascinating to me. That's the one thing, because I've been trying to be good about reading more, biblically, and that common theme that is in everything, and everything that he says, everything that he does, everything that he asks us to do, is that one thing. And as I kind of look, we're not doing very good at it. I'm just honest, we're not. And I want to strive to be better. I want my son, to be better. I want us all to be better. So I think that, for me is really the journey that I'm on. I think the other piece for me for Unfinished is really around, I came to Center Pointe not knowing what I was going to find. And I really feel like I struck, pay dirt, if you will. I want that to be the same sentiment that others feel, regardless of their ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation. I think you take all of that aside, and is it someplace that you can walk in and instantly know that this is home? And I would like to be able to, even if it means that by virtue of how I look, gives somebody else who looks like me the interest, then I'm, half the battle's won, if you will. So that's another piece of it that I think that kind of I'd like to be part of as well, is how do I, maybe through my diversity help connect some of those dots. Well, when Sean talks about the journey of how, Center Pointe started and sort of where it is now, you're like, wow, that's just, mind-boggling. I'd like 20 years from now for that to be said about this team, relative to the population of the congregation, relative to the impact that we have, not just on the community, but, in the world. And where people say, without a doubt, that we represent the type of people that they also strive to be, both in terms of what we say and in terms of what we do. That to me would be ideal state for the future, and to make a difference, to continue to make a difference. Keep doing what you're doing. I want to be part of this journey and part of this process now, but you've got all of the right elements, and sometimes I would imagine that there are days that no matter what role anyone plays, in this organization, you feel like it's not enough. You want to do more. We all feel that way. But goodness, take time to celebrate and to appreciate what you've done and where you are. I think that's important to do. And a lot of times we never pause to do it. So, I would just say is celebrate and where we are, and don't lose sight of where we want to be.